The Witch and the Definitely Dead Detective by Sadie Brent. Chapter 2, The Call That Changes Everything. Evie sat at the small kitchen table, the letter trembling slightly in her hands. The weight of the words seemed to press down on her chest, and she couldn't shake the growing suspicion that this had to be some kind of scam. Spinks, what do you think? Random lawyer in West Virginia? Long-lost great-aunt? It screams too good to be true, doesn't it? Spinks, perched on the windowsill, turned his head slowly toward her, his yellow eyes half closed, as if to say, "And yet, you're considering it." She sighed, dropping the letter on the table. The paper fluttered slightly, catching the soft breeze from the open window. Outside, the late afternoon light painted the street in shades of gold, the neighbors' wind chimes playing a lazy tune in the warm air. The quiet comfort of the moment clashed with the storm of questions in her mind. Lizzie. The name stirred faint memories, fragments of whispered conversations between her mom and other family members when she was a child. Evie tried to piece them together, but all she could summon was her mother's sharp tone. "We don't talk about Lizzie. She's not someone you need to know about." "Well, Mom," Evie muttered, "looks like Lizzie had other ideas." Her eyes drifted to the envelope again. Simoneau Law Offices, Stony Fork, West Virginia. She had never even heard of the town, let alone imagined she might have ties there. The idea of calling the lawyer felt absurd. Yet the steady thrum of curiosity in her chest refused to be ignored. What if it wasn't a scam? What if Lizzie had left her something real, something that could change everything? Evie stood abruptly, pushing her chair back with a scrape. Spinks chirped in protest, but she ignored him, walking to the sink and splashing cold water on her face. The coolness shocked her out of her spiral of doubt, at least temporarily. "All right, Hutchison," she said to her reflection in the window above the sink, her voice firm. "You're going to call. Worst case scenario? It's nothing. Best case? Who knows?" Spinks chirped again, this time with approval. She grabbed her phone, hesitated for a heartbeat, and then dialed the number on the letter. It rang twice before a cheerful voice answered. "Simoneau Law Offices, Frida speaking. How can I help you?" Evie swallowed hard. Hi, my name is Evie Hutchison. I received a letter from a Mr. Marcellus Simoneau about my great-aunt Lizzie's estate." "Oh, yes, Miss Hutchison, we've been expecting your call," Frida said warmly. "One moment, let me transfer you to Mr. Simoneau." The line clicked, and a burst of old jazz music filled the silence. Evie tapped her fingers nervously on the table. "Miss Hutchison?" A deep, smooth baritone replaced the music, startling her. "This is Marcellus Simoneau. I'm so glad you called." "Hi," Evie said, suddenly feeling awkward. I got your letter? About my great-aunt Lizzie?" Yes. First, let me say how sorry I am for your loss. Lizzie was a remarkable woman. I imagine this has come as a bit of a surprise to you." "You could say that," Evie replied. "I barely remembered I had a great-aunt Lizzie until about 5 minutes ago." Marcellus chuckled softly. "That doesn't surprise me. Lizzie and your side of the family were, let's say, not particularly close, but she knew of you. Quite a bit, actually." "She did?" Evie's brow furrowed. "Oh, yes. Lizzie was very specific in her wishes regarding her estate, and she was adamant that you were the one she wanted to inherit everything." Evie blinked. "Everything?" "Yes. The house, the business, the trust fund, all of it." Her head spun. She leaned heavily against the counter, gripping the edge to steady herself. I don't know what to say." "There's no rush," Marcellus assured her, "but we need to arrange for you to come to Stony Fork for the reading of the will and to handle the transfer of assets. My office will cover all travel expenses, of course." Evie bit her lip. "I'm between jobs right now. I don't know if I can just pack up and—" "We'll make it as easy as possible for you, Miss Hutchison," Marcellus said. "Lizzie wanted this process to be seamless for you. She left detailed instructions for everything." Evie's curiosity flared again, mingled with a growing sense of unease. "What kind of instructions?" Marcellus hesitated for a fraction of a second, then said, "We can discuss all of that when you arrive. Do you think you could come this week?" "This week?" Evie glanced around her half-packed kitchen, then at Spinks, who was now sprawled on the table, that tail twitching lazily. "I guess I don't see why not." "Wonderful. I'll have my assistant, Frida, handle the arrangements. She'll call you shortly with the details." "Okay. Thank you, Mr. Simoneau. Call me Marcellus, please, and you're very welcome. I'll see you soon, Miss Hutchison." Evie ended the call and sank into the nearest chair, her mind racing. "Well, Spinks," she said, rubbing her temples, "looks like we're going to West Virginia." The cat yawned, as if to say, "About time." Later that evening, as the first drops of rain began to patter against the window, Evie found herself poring over the letter again. The storm outside grew steadily louder, lightning illuminating the room in brief flashes. She tried to imagine what kind of life Lizzie had lived. A house, a business, a trust fund. None of it fit with the shadowy figure her mother had always painted Lizzie to be. Who was this woman? And why had she chosen Evie, of all people, to inherit everything? A low rumble of thunder rattled the window pane, and Spinks leaped onto her lap, his tail curling around her arm. "You know," Evie said, scratching behind his ears, "this feels like the part in a mystery novel where the heroine makes a bad decision. Let's hope this trip doesn't end with me on a Dateline special." Spinks gave a soft, approving purr, but Evie wasn't convinced. The sense of foreboding clung to her like the humid air pressing against the glass. She set the letter aside and stared out into the rain-soaked night. Somewhere out there, in a tiny mountain town she'd never heard of, answers waited, and maybe, just maybe, a new beginning.